Hurricane Nate could pose threat to Gulf Coast. Heads for U.S. Tropical storm Nate killed at least 22 people in Central America on Thursday as it pummeled the region with heavy rain while heading toward Mexico's Caribbean resorts and the U.S. Gulf Coast, where it could strike as a hurricane this weekend. In Nicaragua, at least 11 people died, 7 others were reported missing and thousands had to evacuate homes because of flooding, said the country's Vice President Rosario Murillo. Emergency officials in Costa Rica reported that at least 8 people were killed due to the lashing rain, including 2 children. Another 17 people were missing, while more than 7,000 had to take refuge from Nate in shelters, authorities said. 2 youths also drowned in Honduras due to the sudden swell in a river, while a man was killed in a mudslide in El Salvador and another person was missing. Emergency services said, "Sometimes we think we can cross a river and the hardest thing to understand is that we must wait," Nicaragua's Murillo told state radio, warning people to avoid dangerous waters. "It's better to be late than not to get there at all." Costa Rica's government declared a state of emergency, closing schools and all other non-essential services. Highways in the country were closed due to mudslides and power outages were also reported in parts of country, where authorities deployed more than 3,500 police. The Miami-based National Hurricane Center, NHC, said Nate could produce as much as 15 inches, 38 centimeters, in some areas of Nicaragua, where schools were also closed. Nate is predicted to strengthen into a Category 1 hurricane by the time it hits the U.S. Gulf Coast on Sunday, NHC spokesman Dennis Feltgen said. At about 11 p.m. EDT, 0300 GMT, Nate was some 95 miles, 153 kilometers, east-southeast of the Honduran island of Guanaja, moving northwest at 12 miles per hour, 19 kph, the NHC said, blowing maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour, 64 kph. Nate was expected to move across eastern Honduras on Thursday and into the northwestern Caribbean Sea through the night. The storm will be near hurricane intensity when it approaches Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula late on Friday, where up to 8 inches, 20 centimeters, of rain were possible. The NHC said, Nate is expected to produce 6 to 10 inches, 15 to 25 centimeters of rain in southern Honduras, with up to 15 inches, 38 centimeters, in some areas, the NHC said. The NHC said a hurricane watch was issued from Morgan City, Louisiana, to the Mississippi-Alabama border, including metropolitan New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain, and Lake Maurepas. U.S. officials from Florida to Texas told residents on Thursday to prepare for the storm. A state of emergency was declared for 29 Florida counties and the city of New Orleans. The threat of the impact is increasing, so folks along the northern Gulf Coast should be paying attention to this thing, the NHC's Feltgen said. In Mississippi, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency plans to release as a precautionary measure 40 million gallons, 151 million liters, of acidic water from storage ponds at a Pascagoula waste site. The release to a drainage pipe is intended to prevent a greater spill during the storm, the EPA said, adding there are no anticipated impacts to the environment. Major Gulf of Mexico offshore oil producers including Chevron, CVX, and BP plc, BP, ExxonMobil Corp, and Royal Dutch Shell plc, Rza, and Statoil, STL, were shutting in production or withdrawing personnel from their offshore Gulf platforms, they said. About 14.6% of U.S. Gulf of Mexico oil production and 6.4% of natural gas production was offline on Thursday, the U.S. Department of the Interior's Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement said. Brace yourself, Biloxi. Tropical storm Nate has drawn a bead on Mississippi and the rest of the northern Gulf Coast, packing 40 miles per hour winds. The storm was lashing Nicaragua on Thursday and expected to become a hurricane before it makes landfall Sunday somewhere between New Orleans and the Florida Panhandle, including coastal Mississippi and Alabama. As of now, those areas are in the cone. said NBC meteorologist Sherry Pugh. Areas from New Orleans across to the Florida Panhandle should be prepared for tropical conditions as the forecast will come into focus over approximately the next 36 to 48 hours. Houston, which is still recovering from Hurricane Harvey, was not in Nate's sights as of Thursday afternoon, said Dennis Felton of the National Hurricane Center. But the beleaguered city could feel some of its effects. At this stage, residents along the Gulf Coast from Louisiana through the NW Florida Panhandle should monitor the progress of Nate, check their supplies and heed any advice given by local officials, Felton said in an email. Officials in Grand Isle, a Louisiana town that sits on a narrow barrier island in the Gulf of Mexico, have already declared a voluntary evacuation, the New Orleans Advocate reported. In Florida, Gov. Rick Scott declared a state of emergency in 29 counties located in the northern part of state. We have to take it seriously and get prepared now, Scott said. As of 5 p.m. Thursday, according to an NHC advisory, Nate was marching northwest at a speed of 9 miles per hour with winds of up to 40 miles per hour as it moved across northeastern Nicaragua and drenching the country with up to 20 inches in rain. Costa Rica and Panama are also forecast to get soaked, and the Hurricane Center warned these areas may produce life-threatening flash floods and mudslides. The Mexican government, which is still picking up the pieces from a recent deadly earthquake, has issued a tropical storm warning for the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula and some nearby islands. Strengthening is likely once the center moves over the northwestern Caribbean Sea tonight and Friday, the NHC advisory warned.